The early morning fog still lingered over the outskirts of the U.S. military intelligence facility in Virginia. The base was massive, layered with high-security fencing, motion sensors, armored checkpoints, and surveillance towers that scanned every inch of movement like unblinking eyes. This wasn't an ordinary base. It was one of the most restricted intelligence compounds in the country, where only the highest-ranked officers and classified operatives were allowed access. Even the air around it felt controlled. At Gate 7, two guards stood on duty. Sergeant Miller was a veteran, 20 years in service, strict discipline, and a reputation for being unforgiving. Next to him was Corporal Hayes, younger but equally arrogant, often following Miller's lead without question. Together, they treated Gate 7 like their personal kingdom. "Another boring shift," Hayes muttered, leaning slightly on the barricade. "No action, just IDs and cars." Miller adjusted his rifle strap. "That's how it should be. If something interesting happens here, it means something went wrong." Hayes smirked, "Or something weird walks in." At that exact moment, a black SUV approached the checkpoint. It slowed, then stopped. Both guards immediately straightened. Miller raised a hand. "Vehicle inspection, step out slowly." The driver's door opened. A young girl stepped out. She looked out of place. Not because she looked weak, but because she looked too calm. She was in her early 20s, average height, long dark hair tied neatly back, a simple black jacket over a plain shirt and jeans, no military uniform, no visible weapons, no obvious rank insignia. In her hand, she held a small black folder. Hayes tilted his head. "Sir." Miller narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, I see her." The girl closed the car door softly and walked forward. No hesitation. No fear. Just steady steps toward one of the most heavily guarded gates in the country. Miller stepped forward, blocking her path. "Stop right there," he ordered firmly. "State your purpose." She stopped immediately, looking at him calmly. "I need entry," she said. Her voice was quiet but controlled, like someone who didn't waste words. Hayes let out a short laugh. "Entry into a restricted intelligence base. Lady, you need more than confidence for that." Miller gestured with his hand. "ID and authorization." Without argument, she opened her black folder. Inside was a single card. Completely black. No bright colors. No obvious text. Just a faint metallic emblem in the center that reflected light in a strange way, almost like it wasn't printed but embedded. Hayes leaned in. "What is that? Some kind of VIP pass?" Miller frowned. Never seen that format before. The girl held it out. Miller took it cautiously between his fingers. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he noticed something strange. The card didn't behave like normal plastic or metal ID. It felt heavier than it looked. And the emblem, it seemed to shift slightly depending on the angle. Hayes chuckled again. "Looks fake." Miller handed it back. "This isn't on any authorized list." The girl didn't react. "I need access," she repeated. Miller's patience hardened. "Listen carefully. This is a military intelligence facility. We don't accept unknown credentials. Turn around and report to administrative command if you have issues." Hayes stepped closer, now more confident. "Or better yet, whoever gave you that card probably scammed you. Happens a lot with civilians trying to look important." A few nearby soldiers who were watching the interaction smirked quietly. The girl glanced at Hayes. Just a brief look. Not angry. Not offended. Just observing him, like one studies a variable in a test. Hayes noticed the silence and leaned in further, lowering his voice slightly. "You lost, sweetheart, or are you just trying to impress someone?" Miller didn't stop him. He was also watching her closely now. The girl closed her folder slowly. "I will enter," she said calmly. That sentence shifted the mood instantly. Miller scoffed, "You will not." Hayes laughed. "This isn't a public building. You don't just decide to enter." The girl tilted her head slightly. Then she said something unexpected. "Call command. Ask them about Omega-7 clearance." The words hung in the air for a moment. Miller blinked once, then frowned. "Omega what?" Hayes laughed out loud. "Okay, that's definitely made up. Sounds like a video game rank." One of the nearby soldiers even chuckled. But Miller didn't laugh. Something about the way she said it, calm, precise, unshaken, made him uneasy. He turned slightly. "Control room, gate 7, he spoke into his radio. "We've got a civilian claiming Omega-7 clearance. Request verification." There was a brief pause. Static. Then the radio crackled. A voice responded, but it wasn't casual anymore. It was sharp. "Repeat subject identification." Miller stiffened slightly. "Female civilian, black card presented, claims Omega-7 clearance." Silence followed. Longer than expected. Hayes leaned in. "They're probably checking databases. This will be quick." But the silence stretched. Then the command voice returned, lower, more serious now. "Confirm immediate details." Miller looked at the girl again. "She is requesting entry into Gate 7. A sudden sharp inhale came through the radio. Then the voice changed completely. "Urgent. Do not deny access. Repeat, do not deny access. This is a direct command from Central Authority." Both guards froze. Hayes straightened instantly. "Sir, Central Authority." Miller's grip tightened on the radio. "Confirm identity classification." A second voice cut in, this one clearly higher rank. "Authorization confirmed. Initiate full access protocol. Stand down all gate resistance." Miller blinked. "Stand down." The radio snapped back. "Now." A long silence followed. The weight of that single word hit everyone at Gate 7. Miller slowly lowered his weapon slightly. Hayes looked confused. "Sir, what's happening?" But Miller didn't answer. Because behind the girl, the entire security system suddenly shifted. Red lights flickered, then turned green. One by one, automatic locks disengaged with mechanical clicks that echoed across the checkpoint. The massive gate began to open. Slowly, heavily, like the facility itself had just been forced to obey an unseen authority. The girl stepped forward. No rush, no emotion, just movement. Miller instinctively stepped aside without realizing it. Hayes whispered, "Who is she?" Miller didn't answer, because he didn't know anymore. And for the first time in his entire military career, Sergeant Miller felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. The girl walked past them, and as she crossed the threshold into the base, every camera at Gate 7 automatically rotated to follow her. Not manually, not by operators, but by system override. Inside the control room, alarms had already begun, and nobody knew why. But one thing was clear. This wasn't a normal visitor, and the base had just made a mistake it couldn't undo. The moment the girl crossed Gate 7, the atmosphere inside the base changed instantly, like a switch had been flipped in reality itself. The calm morning order of the military intelligence facility shattered into something unrecognizable. At first it was subtle. A few blinking lights in the surveillance room. A few automated system alerts no one had ever seen before. Then within seconds, everything escalated. Control room, level 5 security hub. "Why are the external cameras locking onto a single target?" One technician shouted. "I'm not doing it. another replied, frantically tapping his console. The system is overriding manual control. A red warning banner flashed across every monitor. Unauthorized system, override DETCTED. Then another line appeared underneath it. Entity classification, Omega-7 confirmed. The entire room went silent for half a second. Then chaos exploded. That classification doesn't exist in our system, an officer snapped. Delete it. I can't, the technician said, panic rising in his voice. It's embedded in the core security architecture. A senior operator rushed forward and grabbed the keyboard. Run a forced reset. I already tried, the technician shouted. It's locked out all admin permissions. Across the room, a large digital map of the base flickered. A single moving dot appeared near Gate 7, and it was slowly moving inward, toward the heart of the facility. Back at Gate 7, Sergeant Miller stood frozen. His rifle was still half raised, but his grip had loosened. Corporal Hayes looked like he had forgotten how to breathe. She just walked in, Hayes whispered. Miller didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the open gate where the girl had disappeared into the base corridor. Then finally he spoke. That wasn't supposed to happen. Hayes turned to him sharply. What do you mean? We followed protocol. Command ordered us to stand down. Miller's jaw tightened. Protocol doesn't include Omega-7. Hayes frowned. But you heard the radio. I heard something that shouldn't exist, Miller interrupted quietly. For the first time, doubt crept into his voice. And that unsettled him more than anything else. Inside the base main corridor, the girl walked forward without rushing. Bright white hallway lights reflected softly off the polished floor. Every few meters, biometric scanners flickered as she passed, activating automatically without requiring authorization. A security officer stepped into the hallway ahead of her. Stop, he ordered, raising his hand. This area is restricted to level 4 clearance and above. The girl stopped. The officer approached cautiously. Show your identification, he demanded. She calmly held up the black card again. He frowned. This is not valid in this sector. Who authorized you to? Before he could finish, the card emitted a faint pulse. A low electronic tone echoed through the corridor. Beep. The officer's handheld scanner suddenly flickered violently. Then displayed. Clearance override DETCTED. His eyes widened. That's impossible, he whispered. Behind him, another security door unlocked automatically. Without command. Without permission. The girl walked past him. The officer didn't stop her. He couldn't. His system had just rejected his authority completely. Base-wide alert triggered. Suddenly, every speaker across the facility activated at once. A deep automated voice echoed through the corridors. Attention all UNITS. Security breach level. Unknown entity DETCTED. Initiating protocol. Black veil lockdown. Red emergency lights began flashing across every hallway. Doors sealed automatically. Armored shutters dropped over windows. Soldiers froze mid-movement as weapon systems recalibrated. And then, the doors at the Central Command Center slammed shut. Command Center panic escalates. General Carter stormed into the room. What is going on? He demanded. No one answered immediately, because every screen in the room was showing the same thing. A live feed of the girl walking through the base, and the system tracking her movement without any operator input. Who is she? Carter shouted. No one spoke. A young analyst finally whispered, Sir, the system identified her as Omega-7. Carter turned sharply. That designation does not exist. I know, the analyst said quickly, but the system is treating it as higher than top secret clearance. It's overriding all command layers. A senior tech officer stepped forward. "Sir, we're locked out of surveillance control, access grids, even defense protocols." Carter slammed his fist on the table. "Shut it down." "We can't," another officer replied. "It's like the system is obeying her instead of us." Silence hit the room again. For the first time in years, the command center felt powerless. The girl continues walking. Unaware, or perhaps unconcerned, she continued deeper into the facility. Soldiers lined the hallways now, uncertain whether to move or stand down. One young soldier whispered, "Do we stop her?" His captain shook his head slowly. "I don't know what she is, but I know what happens if we ignore command authority." So they stood aside, letting her pass. Every camera tracked her automatically. Every door opened before she reached it. Every system obeyed her presence like it had been waiting for her return. Sergeant Miller, internal conflict. Back at Gate 7, Miller finally lowered his weapon completely. Hayes stared at him. "Sir, what do we do?" Miller didn't answer right away. Then quietly said, "We wait." "For what?" Hayes asked. Miller looked toward the base interior. "For command to explain why a civilian just turned the entire facility into a controlled failure." A heavy silence followed. Then Miller added, almost to himself, "And why nobody seems surprised except us." Deep inside the facility, restricted core zone, the girl stopped in front of a sealed door. Unlike every other door in the base, this one didn't open automatically. Instead, a red warning flashed above it. "Core access, level Omega only." She stared at it for a moment, then raised her black card. The air around it shimmered faintly. The system hesitated. For the first time since her arrival, it resisted. Inside the control room, alarms blared instantly. "Core access attempt detected," a technician shouted. General Carter rushed forward. "Block it." "I can't," the technician yelled. "It's not responding to override commands." The girl placed the card against the scanner. A long silence followed. Then, a deep mechanical sound echoed through the entire base. Clunk. The sealed door unlocked. Slowly opened. Every soldier in the facility felt it. Something had just changed. And whatever was behind that door was not just a secret. It was the truth the entire base had been built around. The girl stepped inside, and the door closed behind her. The heavy core zone door sealed shut behind her with a deep mechanical thud that echoed through the entire facility. For a moment, everything went quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps, no voices, no system beeps. Just the low hum of lockdown machinery and the uneasy realization that something irreversible had just happened inside the most protected section of the base. Inside the core zone, the girl stood in a long circular chamber, surrounded by black glass panels and holographic interfaces that floated in midair like suspended fragments of light. Unlike the rest of the facility, this room did not feel military. It felt older, more advanced, more controlled. At the center of the room stood a single elevated platform with a cylindrical terminal embedded into it. Around it, faint symbols pulsed slowly, like a system waiting for a command that only one person could give. She walked forward. Each step triggered a soft response from the system. "Access recognized. Welcome back, Omega-7." Her expression didn't change, but for the first time she looked slightly heavier in thought. Not fear, not hesitation. Memory. She placed the black card into the terminal slot. The entire room reacted instantly. Light spread outward in a wave. Walls that looked like solid black metal turned transparent, revealing hidden data streams beneath. Millions of classified files, operational logs, and global surveillance grids. And then, a voice activated. Not robotic. Not automated. Human. Authorization confirmed, it said softly. A pause. Then, Commander Arya Vance, welcome back. The name that stopped the system. At gate control, Miller suddenly straightened. Hayes looked at him. Did you hear that? Miller's face went pale. Yeah, he said slowly, I did. Inside the command center, the name had already triggered chaos. Commander, one officer repeated. Who is Commander Vance? General Carter turned sharply. Search military database. I already did, the analyst shouted. There is no active record under that name. Then search classified archives. I did that too. The analyst's hands shook slightly as he looked at the screen. Nothing. It's like the identity exists, but is intentionally erased from every accessible layer. Carter's jaw tightened. That's impossible. A senior intelligence officer stepped forward carefully. Sir, there are only two possibilities for something like that. Carter turned toward him. The officer swallowed. Either she never existed. A pause. Or she exists above our clearance structure entirely. Silence dropped over the room. Heavy, uncomfortable, unbelievable. The core room activation. Inside the core zone, the chamber began to reshape itself. Walls lit up with classified military operations spanning decades. Wars, covert missions, satellite strikes, intelligence manipulations, all displayed as if someone had unlocked the truth of every hidden decision ever made. The system voice spoke again. Memory restoration sequence initiated. The girl closed her eyes briefly. Images flickered across the air. A battlefield. A collapsed command center. A secret global summit. And herself, standing in different uniforms in different eras, always one step ahead of everyone else. Then everything stopped. Her eyes opened again. Calm. Focused. Now fully aware. Outside, the base begins to break apart. At multiple sectors of the facility, systems started failing in unexpected ways. Not crashing. Not shutting down. But disconnecting from command authority entirely. Weapon systems locked themselves. Drones returned to hangars automatically. Security doors stopped responding to human input. Every control panel displayed the same message. Command layer OVRRIDDEN. Soldiers panicked. What's happening to the base? One shouted. It's like the entire system is responding to one person, another said. Who? No one had an answer. But deep inside they all felt it. Something had entered the facility that the base was never meant to handle. Command center breakdown. General Carter slammed both hands onto the table. This is unacceptable. We are losing control of our own facility. A technician spoke quickly. Sir, all external communication channels are being filtered. Filtered by what? The technician hesitated. By internal authority override. Carter stared at him. That's not a thing. It is now, the technician replied quietly. A sudden alarm sounded. Not emergency breach. Not security failure. But something far worse. Primary authority link established. Carter froze. Primary authority, he whispered. The system voice repeated. Link confirmed. Omega-7 command node active. Carter turned slowly toward the screen. And for the first time, he saw it. A live feed from the core zone. The girl standing in the center of the chamber. And beneath her image, a label that should not exist. Global Command Authority, active. The room went silent. One officer stepped back. "Sir, that means—" Carter cut him off sharply. "I know what it means." His voice lowered. "It means she is not inside our system." He looked at the screen again. "She is the system." Sergeant Miller's realization. Back at Gate 7, Miller suddenly removed his helmet. Hayes looked at him. "Sir, what are you doing?" Miller stared toward the interior of the base. "She's not a spy," he said quietly. Hayes frowned. "What then?" Miller's voice tightened. "She's a command node." Hayes blinked. "That's not a person." Miller didn't respond immediately. Then said, "Not anymore." A long silence followed. For the first time, Hayes didn't argue. Because the entire base was too quiet now. Too controlled. Too obedient. Inside the core zone, final activation. The room dimmed. All holographic systems aligned toward her. A final message appeared in the air. "Do you wish to restore full global authority access?" She stood still for a moment, then raised her hand slightly, and spoke one word. "Execute." The system responded instantly. Authority restoration initiated. A deep pulse echoed across the facility. Then, every screen in the base, every terminal, every security interface flickered at the same time. And changed. Global shockwave. Inside the command center, alarms stopped abruptly. Then all systems reset. One by one, every officer saw the same message. Chain of command, Arya Stereositioridi. Carter stepped back slowly. "This can't be real." The analyst whispered. "It just redefined military hierarchy across the entire network." Carter turned sharply. "Across what network?" The analyst looked up. "Global Defense Network." A heavy silence followed. Then the system displayed one final line. "Welcome back, Commander VANCE." The moment the system message flashed across every terminal inside the base, time itself seemed to hesitate. "Welcome back, Commander VANCE." No one moved. No one spoke. Even the emergency alarms, those that had survived every simulation, every drill, every real-world crisis, fell silent as if they had also accepted a higher authority. And somewhere deep inside the core zone, the girl finally lowered her hand. Not because she was done, but because everything had already been done for her. Inside the core zone, the final layer activates. The chamber around her began to shift again. What once looked like a sealed military control room now unfolded into something far larger, an expanding holographic command sphere, revealing a hidden global network beneath the military system. It wasn't just one base. It was every base, every satellite, every intelligence hub connected under classified global defense coordination. And all of it was now synchronized to her presence. A soft voice returned from the system. "Full restoration complete." A pause. Then, global authority protocols are now active under Commander Arya Vance. The girl stood still, eyes reflecting the glowing world map rotating around her. But her expression wasn't surprise. It was recognition. Like someone remembering something they had forgotten on purpose. Outside, the base loses its identity. Across the entire facility, soldiers began experiencing something even more disturbing than chaos. Control panels no longer responded to rank-based authentication. Doors no longer recognized commanders. Weapon systems refused manual input. Every interface now displayed a single unified directive. Awaiting command input, Arya VANCE. At Gate 7, Sergeant Miller slowly sat down on a nearby metal crate. Hayes stood beside him, staring at the distant corridor where she had disappeared. "This isn't normal," Hayes whispered. Miller didn't respond immediately. Then quietly, "No," he said. "This is what happens when the system decides we were never in charge." Hayes turned toward him. "Then who was?" Miller looked forward and answered simply, "She was." Command Center, the collapse of authority. Inside the command room, General Carter was no longer shouting. He wasn't ordering. He wasn't commanding. He was staring, watching the screen like it had betrayed him personally. The analyst spoke carefully. "Sir, all command hierarchy is now locked. Even emergency override is disabled." Carter's voice came out low. "By whom?" The analyst hesitated. "By Commander Vance's authority key." Carter slowly turned. "That name again." A senior intelligence officer stepped forward. "Sir, I've finally accessed restricted archives." Carter snapped, "And?" The officer swallowed. "Commander Arya Vance was part of a classified defense project over a decade ago." Silence sharpened instantly. Carter narrowed his eyes. "What project?" The officer hesitated again. "Project Black Horizon." A ripple went through the room. Even those who had never heard the name felt its weight. Carter's voice dropped. "That project was shut down." "Yes, sir," the officer replied. "Officially terminated, all records erased." Carter stepped closer. "So why is she still active?" The officer looked down at the screen and said the sentence no one wanted to hear. "Because she was never just part of the project." A pause. "She was the control layer." Inside the core zone, the truth emerges. The chamber lights dimmed. A final hologram activated in front of her. Not data, not maps, but memory reconstruction. The system spoke again. "Would you like to restore full origin sequence?" The girl didn't answer immediately. For a moment, she simply looked at the floating world around her. Then nodded once. "Proceed." The air shifted. The core zone dissolved into a simulation. A different time, a different facility. And there she was, not as a soldier walking into a base, but as a designed intelligence asset being created inside a classified lab. Scientists, engineers, military officials, all surrounding a central prototype system labeled Omega Control Core Human Interface Unit. A voice echoed in the simulation. "She is not a soldier." A scientist replied. "She will command soldiers." Another voice. "She is not a person in the system." A pause. "She is the system's decision layer." The memory sequence ended abruptly. The core zone returned, and she stood alone again. The realization, what she actually is. Her eyes slowly opened wider. Not in shock, but understanding. She wasn't just a ranked officer. She wasn't just a classified operative. She was never meant to operate under command. She was built as the authority that command systems would eventually default to when all structures failed. A living override protocol. A human key for global military continuity. A system that could not be hacked. Because it wasn't code. It was her. Outside, global systems react. Across continents, military satellites began recalibrating. Defense networks across allied nations flickered simultaneously. Emergency command systems in multiple countries displayed identical messages. Omega Authority recognized. In intelligence agencies worldwide, analysts froze mid-task. One after another, screens locked into a single unified control signal. And at the center of it all, Commander Arya Vance. Gate 7, the final moment of silence. Back at the entrance, Miller stood again. This time, he didn't feel confusion. Only acceptance. Hayes spoke quietly. So what happens now? Miller looked toward the interior of the base. Then answered. Now, we follow orders that were always above ours. A pause. Hayes frowned, and her orders are. Miller exhaled slowly. We wait for her to decide what the world does next. Inside the core zone, final command. The system spoke one last time. Global command synchronization complete. Awaiting directive. She stood still. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then finally spoke. Calm. Controlled. Certain. Stabilize all systems. Instantly, the entire global network responded. No hesitation. No delay. Every alarm stopped. Every lock reset. Every weapon system entered safe mode. Every command chain reorganized itself into a single, coherent structure under her authority. Not chaos. Not destruction. Control. Absolute control. Final scene, the world quietly changes. Outside, soldiers across bases worldwide began noticing something strange. War rooms became silent. Satellite feeds stabilized. Conflicts paused without explanation. Emergency systems normalized in ways that defied logic. And no one knew why. Except one thing. Somewhere, someone had taken control of everything. Final shot, the girl who was not just a girl. Inside the core zone, Arya Vance turned slightly toward the exit. For the first time, she stepped forward not as a visitor, but as the center of the system itself. Behind her, the core chamber lights dimmed. The world map faded, and the system spoke softly. Directive accepted. She walked out, and as the doors opened for her without resistance, the entire world's military network quietly aligned itself to her presence. Not in fear, not in chaos, but in obedience. Because the system had finally remembered what everyone else had forgotten. She was never entering the base. She was returning to it.